Stephen Hawking, born January 8, 1942, is a British scientist, university professor and author who has accomplished groundbreaking work in physics and cosmology and whose books have helped make science accessible to all. Stephen Hawking was the eldest of Frank and Isabel Hawking's 4 children, and his family was a family of intellectuals. His Scottish mother made her way to Oxford University in the 1930s, a time when few women could go to college. His father, also an Oxford graduate, was a distinguished medical researcher, particularly in tropical diseases. Stephen's birth was not a good time for his family, who did not have enough money. The political climate was also tense, as England was in World War II and vulnerable to German bomb attacks. Isabel returned to Oxford to give birth to their first child. She continued to have children, to give birth to Mary General and Philippa, as one close family friend describes them. The Hawkings were an eccentric family. They ate their food in silence, and each member of this family was immersed in a book. At a 1963 New Year's party, he met language student Jane Wilde. They married in 1965. The couple had a son, Robert, in 1967, a daughter, Lucy, in 1970, and a son, Timothy, in 1979. In 1990, Hawking left his wife, to marry Eileen Mason, one of his nurses, in 1995. This marriage made Hawking's relationship with his children tense, and they alleged that Eileen was keeping their father away from them. In 2003, the nurses caring for Hawking filed a complaint, including their suspicions that Elaine had physically assaulted her husband. Hawking denied the allegations, and the police suspended their investigation. In 2006, Hawking and Elaine filed for divorce, and reconciled with Jane, who remarried. He published 5 children's science novels with his daughter Lucy.
Hawking was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis at the age of 21. The nerves that control his muscles have malfunctioned. At the time, doctors gave Hawking a possible life of 2.5 years. Hawking began noticing his physical health problems while at Oxford University, and he stumbled and fell on some occasions but when his father noticed this situation, his father showed him to a specialist, who underwent a series of tests. They took muscle samples from my arm, injected strange radioactive fluid into my spine, watched it go up and down with X-rays, and after all that, they didn't tell me what I was up to, except that I don't have multiple sclerosis type. Doctors diagnosed Hawking with early stages of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. This was disastrous news for him and his family. While Hawking was still in the hospital, he shared his room there with a boy suffering from leukemia. As for what his roommate was suffering from, Hawking found his situation to be acceptable. Hawking's disease helped make him the world he is today. Hawking was not a student who focused on his lessons. He only had to get a doctorate his whole life. And Hawking devoted himself to his work and research. As he lost control of his body, and had to use a wheelchair, the effects of his illness began to wane. Hawking's family took one of his graduating students to help him manage his affairs and his business. He could still eat by himself, and get out of bed, but in practice, he needed help with everything else. This made Hawking's ability to do his job vulnerable, so he had to use software developed by a programmer in California that could direct with the movement of the head or eyes.
This invention allowed Hawking to choose words on the computer screen and then pass those words through a machine that pronounces them. In the early days of this device, Hawking could still use his fingers. He would select words with a hand clicker, and with practically no control over his entire body, Hawking would run this program with a cheek muscle attached to a sensor. Despite the presence of the program and the help of assistants. Of course, Hawking's health is a constant focus, and in 2009 he refused to appear at a conference in Arizona due to a chest infection. In April, after Hawking announced his retirement from the position of professor of mathematics at Cambridge University, he was hospitalized with what university staff called a very serious illness. To be announced later that it is expected to fully recover.